increase. Let something be said. Let it bless, touch, oh God, strengthen your people even now. Let the promise and demand and wounds that are physical. So God, I thank you for the meeting now. And Father, I thank you even now that somebody might be encouraged, uplifted, but come out understanding how powerful the seed is. I thank you in Jesus' name. And on tonight, as always, is a passion to be able to share my birthday one with this, my first book, The Power of the Seed, which has truly been such a blessing that I look back over 5 years, that it has now been in manifestation of. And I looked back the other day and was saying how God has allowed the power of so many different places. And it's to God be the glory. As I tell everybody, it's all about God. It's all that God gets the glory. But to be able to be a vessel being used, the privilege, the opportunity, I don't take it lightly or for granted. And I always want people to understand that everything starts with the seed, Christ being our ultimate seed, but everything starts with the seed. And the base scripture of the power of the seed, and I'm gonna go back when this was birthed. One Saturday morning, I came down about 5 a.m. To pray, and I was praying for my pastor and first lady. And I asked God to bless me with a project to be a blessing to them, to ministry, and to the kingdom. And so after I was praying, I walked into the kitchen. And at that time, it was about like 5:40 in the morning on a Saturday morning. I prayed like 1, 3, 5, jump on our prayer line at 6. And so I opened the door to the deck, and the tree in my yard, I had been in my house 10 years at the time, and the tree had changed like I've never seen it. And so I looked at the tree, and all I could hear was these two things: put it in a book. Your season just changed. And right in that moment, hearing God clear speak, I turned around and he gave me the power of the seed. And it's amazing because last night I was sitting at the computer and I found the original manuscript to it with the whole drawing. I drew the tree. And so I took out the paper, and I still have the original, and I began to draw the tree. And so I messaged a buddy of mine who has a graphic design company, and I said, listen, this is what I need. He probably said, what in the world is my brother, Dr. E, sending me at 5:45 on a Saturday morning? Well, that moment, I could have missed that opportunity. I could have missed that moment, that God gave me right then and there if I had procrastinated and if I had not moved when he unctioned, if I had not moved when he gave it. And so from there, the power of the seed was birthed and it began the journey. And so now this is the 5th year. And it's so ironic because I released another book in the 5th year, and my tree actually changed again in this 5th year, which makes 15 years I've been in my home. And I said, wow. And it's the number of grace. So one of the base scriptures, which I love, is Isaiah 55:10, which deals with, whereas the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Now, I love this because Isaiah reminds us that he gives seed to the sower. But one of the things is that the seed does have power, but it's a whole process, Bishop, the process and preparation, even from the natural aspect of a farmer, from the natural and the spiritual. So from the natural aspect, from the farmer, because it's a way of living, it's a way of produce. And here what the farmer does, he's got to do all this process in preparation in order before he can plant, seed, or sow. We are always trying to skip the process. There's a process to it, and we're trying to skip the process. We know in Genesis 8:22, when he says, as long as the earth remains, there shall be seed time and harvest. And so when Isaiah picks it up and allows us to know he gives seed to the sower, and I like it when Paul picks it up, and we got in between all of that, there's a process, there's preparation, and then there's the seeding, the sowing, the planting. And listen, even as he tells us, give and it shall be given. Listen, one of the things is your seed has the power to produce. but he declares he gives seed to the sower. So we must be careful, Bishop, of what and where we sow. We must sow in good ground. It starts with a seed. Without sowing, you will not reap a harvest or planting. And actually, one of the chapters in the book deals with the power of the parable of the sower, which says it like this: when anyone heareth the word of God of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. Powerful and clear. This is he which receives seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word and with joy receive it. Yet have he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. I mean, this is all in the word, and this is biblically based. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. But he that receiveth seed in the ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit and bringeth forth some 100, some 60, some 30. And if you go to Matthew 13:18 through 23, it's going to allow you to understand, one, this is biblically based. Your seed does have power. And we've got to understand that even when it comes to tithing, even when it comes to giving, in the natural and the spirit, the Bible always allows us to know that, listen, that which a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And I tell people, whether when we're planting, when we're sowing, when we're seeding, you got to be careful of the ground that you're sowing on. You got to even be careful. I remember someone, a pastor said to me, she came to minister. She said, I don't even really give to people that don't tithe. And she was given an analogy of that when you're ground, like with the farmer, he's got to make sure all that preparation, he's got to get the ground ready, he's got to tool it, he's got to go through the whole process. Then he can begin to plant. He can then begin to sow. He can then begin to not plant what he's going to plant. And so here's the thing, Bishop, and I love this because he sees from the beginning, yet he sees the end. And God gave me this revelation when I was standing looking at this banner. All behind me, everything started with a seed. But all of that, there was a process, there was preparation, but yet while I'm standing in the middle of the harvest, I got something ahead of me. But I got to continue the process. I got to continue that. Here it is. When I plant the seed, I got to water the seed and I got to nurture the seed. We cannot skip the process. And too many people in life are trying to skip the process. Whatever your process is, you got to go through the process in order to get the harvest. Gold got to go through the process. Diamonds got to go through. We've got to go through a process in order to be who we are. Or even as the scripture says, we're going to come out as pure gold. But why so many people are trying to skip the process and get to a harvest? They're trying to skip all of that behind me and yet get to the harvest that's in front of me. But if you don't sow, if you don't plant, if you don't, this is the critical part. It's the middle process that counts, Bishop. It's the middle process, Nate, that here it is. The farmer says, now I've done all of this, but what do I do with the middle process? I've got to nurture it. I got to water. I got to harvest it. And so that what helps when the seed is everything that has been planted. It will germinate through the underground process and get to the set time and season to produce that which he sown. And so many times, it may not even be the same season that the harvest comes up. So what does he do? He's got to start the process all over again. Even when it comes to seed time and harvest, God is sovereign. The word will not return back void. It will accomplish that which he sent it to. Here's the footnote. Be careful of where you sow your seed. And it is very key because this seed, Every ground is not good ground. The word tells us that there's stony ground. You got to make sure that your seed, just like in your yard, if you want to do plant new grass, you got to pull up the weeds. You got to go through all of that process before you can plant that whatever seed, or if it's your garden. But if you don't take the necessary time to do all the work that comes with it, you're not going to receive what you're planting. And so you got to make sure you don't miss the harvest. You got to make sure that you're going through the process, the preparation. You got to make sure, is this ground right? Have I gone through the process of it? Have I prepared it? And now am I ready when I'm seeding, when I'm sowing? And I love, because not only that, when it comes to even giving in ministry, even in tithing, when it starts with tithing. People are trying to skip and say they're going to give a seed, but how about, he says in Malachi 3 and 8, that to bring ye all tithes into the storehouse. And a lot of times, people will do whatever we want, but yet when it comes to tithing, this is the greatest with a guarantee that you're going to get when you can sow into the kingdom, when you can sow and when you can plant, because his words are guaranteed. If he says he's going to give seed to the sower, if he says we got a harvest coming, if he says as long as the earth remains, there shall be seed time and harvest. Listen, your seed is capable of germinating to produce a plant. Harvest time is a season of such a gathering, a set time. So here it is. We seed in, we plant in soil, and we sow. There's a process. And giving is a part of worship. He that soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. He that soweth bountifully, he shall reap bountifully. God loves a cheerful giver. And sometimes we miss all of that trying to get to a harvest. But you've got to go through the preparation. You can't get a college degree if you have not gone, through the schooling, the GED, diploma, high school. Or you cannot get, say, if you want the promotion on a job, some require, whether it's a degree, some require, whether it's your experience. And so many times we're trying to skip the process. And that's what happens. We're trying to skip the process, and then things don't fall the way they should, because we're trying to skip the process. Just like with a diamond, it will never be a diamond unless it goes through that whole process. Gold, you cannot take it out in the middle because the impurities will not come out. It's got to go through the entire process. We got to go through the entire process. If we're going to mature, we're going to grow. And the results, here it is a benefit to giving. You will reap when you sow, and when you sow in good ground, it will produce a harvest. Everything starts with the seed. The seed does have power, and a lot of times we miss it because we're trying to skip over. And one of the things is I love about how powerful the seed is because even after that set time, I'm planting and I'm seeding and I'm sowing, but yet my harvest might not be in the same year. But it doesn't mean that I don't have a harvest coming. It's just the timing and season that I'm waiting on. And here's one of the things I tell people is that the timing and season of God is key. When I was in Punta Cana, they took us on a tour, and we watched how from beginning to end about coffee was made. All that process, no children, and they trained them at an early age. They were in the fields, and they were taking us through the whole process. And when we got to the end of the process, we were able to drink coffee. I said all of that they had to go through for us to be able to drink the coffee. Why is it that we don't want to go through the process if I'm looking for something? And it's an ongoing process, because even if it's not the same year, as I traveled years ago going to our graduation to my alma mater at North Carolina College of Theology, and this is part of where this book came from. I began to see the farmers, and it was on like a 270 road, and I would see the farmer on a tractor, and then I would see him down the road, and as the dirt was here, but then as I got all the way almost to where we were going, and I turned to Dr. Pender and said, listen, now look at the harvest. But it was a whole process of getting to that harvest. we cannot skip the process.
Yeah.
We gotta go through the process, and it's gonna produce something great at the end. The end result is gonna produce something. How do you determine your harvest from the seed you planted? Are you looking for it to produce something great? While my whole outlook is when I see, my whole outlook is when I'm looking for the harvest. And here's the thing, your seed has the power to release God's harvest. His word is he gives seed to the sower. If we follow the blueprint, if we follow what he says, it's going to produce something great. And listen, even the seed has the ability, the power and ability to even cause healing. Even in prosperity, the power, even in healing, even in our finding, but it's a process. It's the blueprint he gives. If we follow it, it's a guaranteed success. You know, we always in our culture talk about, you know, when they begin to talk about money in the church. But listen, it's seed. We've got to see it. And it's not just that I'm giving my money, Bishop. It's seed. I'm planting something. I'm watering something. I'm nurturing something that's going to produce something later at the end. The process of it. And when I see even into the kingdom, I'm expecting a harvest. Because in the natural, for the believer, we see looking for a harvest. We are in expectation. But you cannot get a harvest if you do not plant. You cannot get a harvest if I'm not continuing to plant and seed and then to water it and to nurture it. I can't expect the harvest. You can't go to the bank wanting withdrawals if there's been no deposits. The same it is. You cannot get a harvest without seeding, without planting, without sowing. And too many times people are trying to get to something that they've not planted, that they've not sown. A generous, even the results in generous in giving. And understanding that everything starts with a seed. It begins when we seed it, when we plant it, even when the rain comes. And these elements are key to even helping the seed germinate through the underground process to get to the set time and season. We deal with dirt, we deal with soil. The farmer deals with all of this, and in order this whole process and to grow it and for it to be produced and the seed to produce what is necessary for the growth. Here, the power of the seed is so awesome and strategic when planted in the right soil. We've got to make sure we're sowing into the right soil. We got to make sure we're sowing into good ground. We got to make sure that the ground is right, that the soil is right. That's why the farmer got to go through all of that. And making sure, and when I was studying agriculture and studying the laws of the harvest and studying Jewish history, I was amazed. Even Paul says in one of it says, Paul recognizes God as the great supplier. Whatever we had to give was first given to us by God. Everything comes from him. Everything was first given to us by God. I'm gonna read something out of the book. And I love it because it helps the believers to understand, believers and non-believers, the whole process and how powerful it is. We really don't understand the power that we have. We really don't understand the power of the seed that we have. Christ being the ultimate seed for us, we've got to understand it is power in it. Like when I'll give my tithes and my offering, I'll write on there, and one of the elders told me this about 20 plus years ago. She said, name your seed. Where do you need it to go? And so while I'm writing on the back, I need it for my families. I need it for healing for someone. And I write it on it. And I said, I put my seed on an assignment. I put it where I need it to go. And I've been doing that for 20 plus years. Every time I write on the back. And then I hand it, you know, we had COVID, but I was like, Bishop, I gotta put this in your hand. Because it's something about putting it in the man of God's hand when he pronounces, even though the word is already declared if we bring the tithe, but it's also another, when it's like when I'm placing it in his hand, he declares another blessing. But the thing is, I write where I need that seed to go. I need family saved. You know, I need co-workers saved. You know, I need the community. I need, you know, and so I put it on assignment, just like we put our praise on assignment. I put my seed on an assignment. And if anybody has any questions, because I know I'm like Bishop, me and Bishop can talk, and me and him, you know. But if anybody has any questions, because I'm also shift right on into this worksheet, and I have one for everybody, but I just want you to understand how powerful it is, even in Psalm 126:5 saying, those that sow in tears shall reap in joy. Sometimes we miss the harvest because we have cried so much. We miss it because we have allowed our circumstances and situations to dictate our future. We may have gotten so overwhelmed, we cannot see further than where we are. We may have cried so much that our eyes become so watery and unfocused that we cannot see that there is something more in store for us. As the psalmist mentioned above tells us that joy comes in the morning, and Psalm 30:5 said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And so when you consider that if weeping endures for a night and joy comes in the morning, no matter how long the night has been, at midnight, guess what? It shifts to another day. So I got joy in the morning, and even in my midnight, I'm yet in my morning, because when it shifts to when that clock turns over, I'm in a whole new day, and it's still night, yet I'm in the morning. You know, nobody but God can do just how awesome He is. And so in our night season, even and we have cried, but I tell people you got 60 seconds to hold on, because morning is you got 60 seconds. If you got to dance through it, if you got to cry through it, you got to lift your hands, if you got to pray through it, I'm telling you, you got 60 seconds. It changes to another day. So what was now and yesterday, now you're in a whole new day. He's given us brand new mercy, morning by morning. So I'm shifted into a whole new day because I held on through the night season. And so even in your process of sowing, even in your process, you got to learn how to hold on. One of the things in the worksheet, I tell people, when you define the following types of seed, and everybody will get one of these worksheets, is that you got seeds of hope. And it's more than just, we think that it's just money, it's seed. And so whether it's seeds of hope, seeds of peace, seeds of happiness, determination, all seeds, circumstance, situations might have the same when planted. But when the manifestation of the fruit or the lack of, it is up to the planter. It's up to you. What am I planting? What am I seeding? What am I sowing? And so here's the thing. And so when you really nurture something, it will grow. You nurture your children. You nurture whatever. When you nurture something, it will grow. But it's up to you. And so here it is. The goal and the focus, even with the power of the seed, is to help you recognize that everything happens and listen, actually in planting of a seed. Seeds have the ultimate potential, nurturing growth, and full development can only happen when we are placed, even listen to this, in challenging circumstances and made to move. And how many of us have been in challenging situations and we were made to move? Seeds can only grow when they have been planted and allowed to take root. Don't try to take stuff up too early. It is timing and season. It is critical. And I tell you, it's critical. The timing and season of God is critical and key. And we're trying to move out because you may think it's season and not time. You may think it's time and not season. But when you operate in the timing and season of God, you can't go wrong. Planting the seed and the right type of soil has a promise of manifesting something awesome if given the opportunity. And how many of us have given the opportunity for our seed to grow? Have we given it the opportunity to nurture it? One of the illustrations in the book talks about a microwave, and that this is a microwavable generation. We want everything overnight, Bishop. Everything, lady, overnight. We want it overnight. Some things go in the crock pot. Some things got to go in the oven. Some things you can put in the microwave, because here's the thing. You can put it in a microwave and it may look done on the outside, but when you stick the fork in, it's not done on the inside. So what do? You got to put it back in. You need more time. You see the steam coming up. Now you got to put it back in because it's still frozen in the inside. And so many of us, we don't want to go through. And when we don't fully go through the whole process, we're not fully developed. When we don't go through the necessary process and the maturity, I love this, because one thing about our ministry, when we were going through aspirants ministry, 4 years, then to minister, then to do the initiative. We went through the whole process of all of that, even for some that felt that, that was too long. But guess what? It helped develop and mature us. And even if you got to the ordination table and they said you wasn't ready, we didn't leave the church. We stayed. It was for our making, because you can jump ship. And I know someone did, and they made a wreck of it. But I'd rather go through the process and somebody love me enough to tell me, okay, you're not ready. You're not ready for that promotion. You're not ready for that house to call, whatever it is. And so many times we don't want to hear it, and we do it, and then we got to come back because then we make a shipwreck of it. And we went through all of this training, and we're still in training and teaching. So you always got to be able to be teachable, because that helped develop me. So when I go other places and I'm looking at the structure of what we went through and all the years of training and teaching and helping develop who we are. And if we didn't skip the process, we did not skip the process. One of the things says here, and I have this in a worksheet for everybody, define your own words of the following statement. When the circumstance arose, I felt like I was being buried. But when I looked closer of the circumstance and the situation, I looked at it from a different perspective. Filled with hope and anticipation, it was actually a seed being planted. I needed to be able to have clarity and full discernment in order to recognize it for what it really was. And a lot of times, because of life, circumstance, situation, we look beyond what it can presently be. And so we don't see it for what it really can become, because we're so engulfed in what we're dealing with. But you got to see beyond what you see. You got to look beyond. The woman, she looked beyond what she could bring. If she would have stayed in her situation, worried about what everybody else and all around, she'd have never got to the him. But you got to look beyond, and it's in that press sometimes. And just like with the farmer, it's going through different seasons that might not look that the harvest is coming, the lack of it might not rain in that season, but he can't get fully discouraged, because he knows he's got to keep going. And that's how it is. We got to keep going. We got to keep seeding. We got to keep planting. We got to keep moving, no matter what it looks like. You got to learn to look at things from a whole nother perspective, because if you look at it from the natural and not the spiritual, it will tell you a whole different thing. And you will get frustrated. You will feel like you're giving up. But here's the thing. You got to keep on going.
Oh, yeah.
Planting a seed. And I'm going to take a moment for anybody with a question. Planting a seed, ideal suggestion, meaning laying the groundwork. We don't like to lay the groundwork. We got to lay the groundwork for something that can develop or expand in the future. A person can plant a seed, whether it's an ideal, and that will last for years to come. We're not looking at how it's going to last. This book is in libraries. It's going to last whether I'm here or not, because somebody's going to read it if I'm here or not. And you got to look at it beyond the now and see the end result. Oprah has a quote like this. She says, your real job in life is to figure out as soon as possible what your purpose is, who you're meant to be, and begin to honor your calling in the best way possible. And I said, wow, what a good quote, because then Stephen Magola says it. He has a quote that says, plant seeds of happiness, hope, success, and love. It will come back to you in abundance. And I said, wow, that's powerful, because we are not looking at just now. We're looking at beyond what we can presently see. We're looking at it from another perspective. I can stand here and knowing that in front of me, I got a harvest. I look beyond me, but it started with the planting of the seed. I look beyond, and now here it is. While I'm in it, I'm looking for the greater harvest that's in front of me. If anybody has any questions, because I know I can talk. Okay. Thank you. But I love this, because so many believers, even in Christian, now use us, is that when it comes to even tithing, I have that in the book, Everything is biblically based because you gotta look at it. It's not just money that we're planning. It's not just money because I'm telling you, it will get God's attention. And so many times, that's why Paul says, don't get weary. We don't have to get weary. If I know I got something coming, I don't have to get weary. Kids know that when Christmas comes, they said, you've been good. You know, you got something coming. Your birthday, whether you buy the gift for yourself or not, you know, you got something coming. And so here's the thing. I don't have to get weary. I know I have something coming. And so many believers, we're getting weary along the way. We're getting weary because we're getting anxious. We're getting weary because we don't want to wait. Here's the thing, for the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh at the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh at the heart. The outward appearance may look wonderful, but what does my inside say? What does my inside say? What does my heart say? What do my actions say that makes a difference? And I gain, even when you gain the trust, here's the thing, end up with this. Everyone has a gift. Whatever their function is, whatever their purpose, you may be a teacher, you may be a singer, but everybody has a gift. But you got to tap into it. You got to understand what it is. And so when we're planting seed, even in the lives, whether it's inspiration, whether it's encouragement, whether it's hope, or saying to someone, John, I love John, 12:24 says, Jesus compares his death to the seed that died once it was planted in the ground, but renewed itself through the plant. It generated. The gospel states, verily, verily, I say unto you, except a quart of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. You know, Jesus was a bad somebody. But he gives us the illustration. Everything starts with the seed, how powerful it is. When you seed into the ground, you have to sow into the right ground and the right soil. So the conditions of the ground does not choke the seed. If you have weeds around them, then guess what? They may hinder the growth of the seed. Consider the yard. You got to lay the groundwork. You got to do all the necessary things so it does not choke the seed. You got to clear the weeds in order so the growth can continue. But here it is. The weeds got to be pulled up. Even in our lives, some things have to be uprooted for new growth to take place in our lives. You cannot do the same or do something different with the same point of view. You cannot be in one place trying to get to another if you have not dealt with the unresolved issues in the place you want to leave. This illustrates the role of the world intertwined. God and Satan, believers and non-believers. Today, we as believers must emphasize the role of the kingdom in terms of planting and reaping. He says it in his word. Paul asked a question in Romans 10:14, clause B. How shall they hear without a preacher? Paul tells us that we must hear the word of God. In order for us to believe it, then we have to apply the word. The Bible says that we are not just to be hearers of the word, but we must be doers of the word also. We have to be the example of what God says in his word. We have to be the model of what he has taught. He, in all that he has given, his commandments, his principles. And I tell you, I can't say that. I believe you got to understand that here it is. If we wasn't always able to be dedicated to believe, but here we are in a place now, we've got to believe what he declared in his word. Everything starts with the seed. The seed has power. The seed is powerful, but what are we planting? What are we sowing? Where are we sowing? How are we sowing? When was the last time I asked this question in one of the worksheets? When was the last time that we planted? When was the last time that we sowed? And you can answer these questions. When was the first and last time you sowed? Planted, whether it was a seed, ideal, suggestion. Think about a time you needed God to help you overcome something. And what does it mean? And is it from your heart? Here it is. Planting, sowing. Are you continuing to, even in faith, to build? Or is the beginning of the process? Are you nurturing the seed until it grows? We try to go over and not go through the whole necessary. It is so necessary that we go through this whole process, it is necessary the seed you plant must contain the qualities to enable it to grow an extended time, even in various conditions. That's why the farmer, he's got to continue out there in the field, because no matter the rain, there's all of these conditions, all of these elements, but he's got something planted. And so he's looking for a harvest in the time that it's to come. He's looking for something to grow. I've planted, I've sown, I've gone through the process. Now I'm looking, I've watered, I dealt with the in-between. And God said, don't get stuck in the in-between. Don't get stuck in the middle of the process. We get stuck in the middle of the process. He said, how you handle the middle process is going to determine the outcome. The farmer, how he handled the middle process is going to determine his harvest. How we handle the middle process is going to determine the outcome. Don't get stuck in the middle of the process, because I need to get to the outcome. I need to, whether it's to the harvest, I need to get to the end result. But if I get stuck here, if I'm not properly doing the necessary in the middle process, I will never get to the end result. All seeds and circumstance, even when they look the same at some point, but can I tell you, you got to declare, I'm expecting a harvest. Follow the process. Maintain your watch. Are we really watching what we plant? Are we watching what we sow? That's why the farmer, I love it. And that whole process of me riding down to Wilmington, North Carolina, Lord, 7 hours. I drove my first lady down every year for like 8 years. But it gave me so much revelation, because as I watched all the way from the beginning to the end, seeing how the farmer, and then seeing when I got to the end result, there was a harvest. I was like, this is my harvest, because I traveled the road, seeing the process. And so many times we get discouraged, or we get so off focus because we're looking at the now. We're trying to do things overnight. And one of the billionaires said to me, he said, success doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. Just show up every day. Failure is part of the success, but show up every day. I'm going to show up until my harvest comes. I'm going to water it. I'm going to nurture it. I'm going to harvest until I see the manifestation of that which I planted, until I see the manifestation of the great harvest that I'm expecting. Have you recognized your circumstance, your situation, or the opportunities in planting seeds of resiliency? And that rule of reciprocity, that's why the rule of reciprocity holds true in most areas of our lives. When we receive a blessing, we're more likely to give back. When you plant and sow seed, if you have the right intent, the commitment, and you can expect the blessing of the harvest, that rule of reciprocity, it's coming back. And that's why I always tell people, you got to be careful of what you sow. You got to be careful of what you plant and what you seed. The scripture clearly tells us in Galatians 6:7, be not deceived. God is not whatsoever man sow. And that's just not just in money, but it pertains to what we're seeding, what we're sowing. If I'm sowing discord at some point, it's going to grow and come back. We've got to really be careful of what we're seeding, because a seed really does have power. It really has the power to produce. It has the power to produce a harvest. It has the power to heal. It has the power to develop into something great. And you got to ask yourself the question. Use the measures, even a personal reflection. What seeds are you allowing to be planted in the inside of you? We don't stop and do assessment. We don't stop and self-reflect. We don't stop to say, why isn't the harvest growing? Why isn't my harvest coming? Or why aren't things happening? But have we really stopped, Bishop, to stop, self-examine? And a lot of times we don't want to do a self-examination. As scripture, let a man examine himself. We got to examine ourselves. It can't be based on someone else. What have I done? Have I examined, where I am? What am I doing? What do I need to do? Am I praying? Am I seeking God? Am I asking him, what do I need to do? Because a lot of times we are our enemy. We are the hindrance, because you can't blame it on someone else, because we all going to be held accountable. And so the thing about it is, we got to stop. As I said to my class in the Life Coach School of Art, stop process, and think? Do we really stop, process, and think before we react, before we do something? We've got to learn to stop, process, and think. And sometimes we got to be reminded, God, if I've not grown, if I have not seen what I'm expecting, what was the in between, what was happening that I'm not seeing it? Go back and pray. Go back, take another look. Go back and seek Him for direction, because all in all, we're looking for something great. And I'm gonna take a few questions if anybody has some questions. You know.
I don't know if you already said it or not, but I just wanted to ask what inspired you to write the book.
What inspired me was I was asking God, I said it earlier, that I was asking God for a project to be a blessing to my pastor and first lady, to ministry and to the kingdom. And after opening the door to the deck, and God said, put it in the book, and literally gave me right there, 5:45 a.m., 5 years ago, standing in the kitchen, the power of the seed. And so what I did was, I began the process of it. And so it was God inspired. And I did not miss that charisma. I did not miss that opportunity that God gave. And I tell people, you can miss the door of opportunity. You can miss what God has. Because for our culture, we know we'll procrastinate, we'll be late, and we won't do it. And that whole process of it was a journey. And I said, wow. What if, and I always look at it, what if I wouldn't obey? What if I would have missed that moment? And so many people always are basing things on, they say money, but seed, because I would have missed what God was doing. And now 5 years later, it has soared like so many different places, but I could have missed that door of opportunity. You can ask another one.
Okay. Another question. So, have you had any mishaps where you wanted to give up on writing a book? And if so, how did you deal with it?
In that regards, because it is a lot of work, and people just think that you just write it and this. No, it was a lot, because right before I released this book, my mother transitioned. Literally out of God's timing. But we had talked on a Sunday. I get a call at my prayer time, and I thought I was in a dream, because I pray at 1 a.m. and I'm like, my phone at 1 a.m. My sister called me. I'm like, still thinking I'm in a whole dream. And so right before releasing this, my mom transitioned. One of the hardest things, and I'm still so I called my pastor. So I thank God for good leadership. Y'all, please, thank God for good leadership. I'm telling you, I called my pastor, and I ain't getting no answer machine, none of that. I talked to them. They prayed with me. Then I jumped on the road to go to the hospital. And the thing about it is that, but then I could hear my mom say, quitting is not an option. And so that gave me, and I shared it in one of my classes at the Carey Business School, because I had to do a presentation. And I shared it as a pocket story to share. That's why, things get hard in life, or things happen out of our control, or we're not looking for it. And the thing about it is, when I heard that, it kept me going, because I know she would be proud. But I dedicated every book I write in honor of her. And I can hear she was the ultimate one of planting seed, giving seed. Even in her death, she gave her body to Hershey Medical for them to find a cure for MS. And the whole thing about it was, God is so amazing, because when we went to Pittsburgh, when they did the memorial, her names in there, the society and all that, they did honor it, and it was so amazing. Well, when I get the letter to come to the one they were doing at Hershey Medical, how about only I'm at the gravesite, Bishop, and they asked me to speak and deliver the word, and I did it to the doctors who was doing the research on my mom's body that was getting ready to graduate. My sister, my whole family, when they say be ye ready, literally, but who would know? And so even in that, how powerful her giving, even in death, just like with Christ, even in his death, it's something great came out of that because I spoke to a group of, all these doctors at Hershey Medical Center at a gravesite. And all of them was coming up after the service was over. And one, I was like, God, there's nobody like you, because to see that and then her name engraved, but yet I'm speaking to the same one she gave her body to do the research on. Nobody but God. And so when I look back after all of that and see how when I obey God and the opportunity and right in that moment to see how powerful the seed was and to see that even in death she get, even to this day, we still pay her tithes and stuff. My sister said every month sends it to my mom's church in Harrisburg, PA, Mount Sinai, literally. And her birthday's next month, she would be 89, and we all got to send $89. We still do it to this day, Bishop, 6 years later. And so that's how powerful the seed is, but we're still planning. And because she was faithful there and they were good to her. And you know, the thing about it is we're continuing the legacy, and that's how powerful it is. That's how powerful the seed is. And so that's what kept me going forward. That kept me even writing other books and dedicating them, is because I could hear her say, well, it's not an option. But you can't get discouraged, because writing is something, but because I'm not just using just any kind of words. I'm listening to God give me these because it's going to affect somebody else, not just me. You know, these words, somebody needs to be inspired, somebody needs to be encouraged. And not only that, these are biblically based and it's backed up with the word. And so, you know, I'm not just writing just to say, you know, I wrote a book, because if somebody reads it and, you know, somebody could be on the verge, but they read something that would encourage them. They could be in the midst of a storm and they read a passage and it keeps them and helps them to get out of the storm. Definitely a good question, because a lot of people in the midst of writing and even in life, you know, feel like, you know, they're not making it real easy to give up and different things like that. But we got to see beyond that. But then God will always send something as a reminder. He will always send somebody or something, whether it's a song, whether it's a word. And literally, I could just clearly hear that. And I kept on going. Heartbroken in the midst of tears. And then I literally had to expedite Sunday service. But God said that the promise is still greater, because I gave, not that she gave her training before, so I added 13 more years on. And so the blessing of that was, you know, knowing who he is, but gave me the strength to even do that. And so it was powerful to know that how powerful the seed really is, that it was planted in me even at a young age. It was planted, you know. And so that's why we also have to be careful what we're speaking into the lives of other people, even in that you speak into your life, because it's a seed being planted. If somebody always tell you you're being up in the roots and all this stuff, that seed being planted, because it's going to grow. It's going to continue. It's going to grow. And next thing you'll be believing everything they say. You know, they'll believe that you can't be that. You'll believe you can't be successful. You believe you can't finish college, or, you know, and it's a seed being planted. It's powerful, good or bad. Good or bad, because it has the power to influence good or bad. You know, and that's why we've got to be careful even allowing people to speak. Like, I just don't allow people to speak stuff in my life. Especially I know it ain't God. You know, or if something don't agree with my spirit, I'm not just going to allow, because the more and more people speak, and people will believe it, and you know, in our culture, people believe it. And that's why we have so much people. I said I wasn't going to be, and the more and more somebody speak that, the more and more you believe it. That's why the word, you got to speak life. We have the power that lies right in this song, and we got to be careful, powerful. You know, and then so we got to be careful of that, you know, and what we release, you know, and I want to release everything that's going to bring him glory, number one, but encourage, inspire somebody else to push forward.
What would you say besides who would you say would be the top 5 Father, take and do the top to be positive and in the center to the seed.
Giving someone, even with the seed, to be able to cause healing to someone, whether it's if they were discouraged or whether someone wanted to give up. I'm planting a seed of hope, you know, causing someone to know that you can be anything you want to be, you know, causing someone that they be in the storm. You don't make it out of this storm. I'm going to plant a seed of encouragement. I'm going to plant a seed of faith. I'm going to plant a seed of hope that, you know what I mean? And even with our own testimony, that if I'm sharing and planting that in somebody else, like 3 years ago when I was in between positions, when I was in between the wilderness and the promise, but yet I went through it, yet I had to minister that to so many people, but that no matter what it is, my integrity, my character, my credibility was worth more to me when I walked away from that job that I've been here 20 years. But yet and still, he already knew the one back on the East Campus he already had it done. But here's the thing, and then my boss hires me from even being on medical leave. Saw my name and that was the end of it. Didn't interview nobody else. I didn't have interview, didn't do any of that. But here it is. But a seed was planted. And so I had to encourage somebody else who was on theirs 30 years. And what the transition of what happened, but I ended up going to surprise a friend of mine for her birthday. And here it is. Had to end up sharing that testimony with the lady who was a director for a phenomenal company, director of HR. But I said, let me share my testimony. So I don't even know why, you know, nobody but God. I had like the CD they gave me and the paperwork. And I said, let me share this with you. And it caused her to even look at her situation from a different perspective. So now she's looking at it because we always look at the negative, but there was a positive in that. Because had that not happened, I wouldn't be doing all the things I'm doing now. And so a seed was planted, you know. And so that seed of hope, that seed of encouragement, and that's why I tell people it's not just always money, but if I can speak life to somebody, if I can call somebody not to give up, you know, if I could say a prayer, you know, I mean, if I could just lend a helping hand, you know, or like when y'all did the community food, so many people are going through so much. That food gave them hope that somebody cares, gave them hope that there's compassion, that somebody still cares. And to allow them to know, and it wasn't just any old kind of thing, or you know, we give stuff away that we just really don't want. No, it was something that was going to help them. And so it goes beyond that, because you know, in our culture and our thing, it's always about it's more than just money. Not only is it seed, but it's to help somebody else, and that's going to produce them not to give up. That whole community fair, you'll have so many people left, knowing that somebody cares. So many people needed that food. So many people needed all of that y'all gave them. But then not only that, they were ministered to, they were encouraged, that knowing that the church still has love, that the church still has caring and compassion, and somebody still cares about them. So even when they walked away, I know their whole perspective changed because somebody showed compassion, just like Christ. It was compassion.
Most people don't believe it. So whenever you see the word seed goes to the top, people try to apply that to a monetary gift all the time. But a lot of people don't know that seed also, when reading a book, I read the book when it first came. I remember never forget in the basement after our first conversation we had. And I think about the power of seed, and I don't see why some people don't understand that love can be the greatest gift or the greatest seed of all is love. And a lot of people don't, it's sad to say today that whenever you see the word or the power of the seed, it turns some people on, but it turns some people off because they're not looking at it in the positive manner of what a seed can be besides a monetary gift, which is, you know. So how you feel about those, let's say the fruits of the spirit has been seed to be able to plant, to be able to incorporate into somebody's life, coming from the power of the spirit of God to the seed that you plant from that gifts to another person.
And that's the word, because just like today, When I read your post, it blessed my whole soul. Why? Because God, we pour out so much. We pray, like I have to literally pray for a young lady who just lost her mother. And I just got her a position in our department. Every morning she calls me at 6:30. Literally, she needs it. She was planning a retirement party. She ended up having a funeral. So I spoke at the funeral. And the thing about it, she said, I need this prayer. So I'm commissioned now. As I'm planning that, I'm praying. So I now have 6:30 that I'm praying for her to help her to get through. I said, I've been there. I know what it is, but everybody's situation is different, even though it's of the same sort. However, that the food service, I'm sharing love, I'm giving inspiration, I'm helping, I'm doing, and that's why we gotta look at it beyond that. It's not just monetary, it seeds of hope, it seeds of happiness, even in the worksheet, it talks about all of that, seeds of happiness, seeds of joy, seeds of success, seeds of, even how to get through circumstances. And sometimes all people need is a word. All people need is hope. All people need is to say, you know what, you can make it, Bishop. You know what, I know you're going, guess what? You're going to get through this. You're planting a seed, but you're planting something that causes them to say, you know what, you believe I can make, and it's going to change their perspective. It's going to change their mindset. And understanding that it's not going to always be like this always. Or as the old saying, said, trouble don't last always. And sometimes that's all all I need is a listening ear, And even when I looked at your post, that was seed being planted, it encouraged me to keep going. It encouraged me to keep pushing. It encouraged me because I have just gotten praying for it out, and God always knows what we need. Right at the appointed time, and that thing blessed my whole soul. I sent it on into the story of one of my pages, but it blessed me. And so not only that, that's more than money, because most people will see it and all. That's more than money, because if you can call somebody not to give up, and you can call somebody to live beyond what they're present in, you can call somebody to just move forward, even when they feel like they're stuck and things are just not happening, or I'm in a situation that I will not get out of. And here you come along and say, you know what, you don't make it. I've been here, or my experience, and share your testimony, and then they're looking like, you know what, I'm gonna make it. You're planting a seed. See, money can't buy that. And when we begin to just think about it, money can't do that. Now we can go to physicians, get the greatest care, but if God don't heal, it won't be done. But if we're planting those seeds of hope, encouragement, prayers, and healing, and it's gonna grow. And so it comes from a whole nother perspective, that it's not just a monetary thing.
Because there's so many people come to us, as even the Black culture, that when we see the positive in somebody, before we even help them, we would rather not seeing the gift that people that give or that seed can also help us as well. A lot of people see other people and what they do, and instead of, and I know we laugh, so I don't like to say a lot of my personal feelings on live, but it bothers me a lot. Really, it bothers me a lot that people would like and love so much stupidity. But then when you have a truth, then people would rather swipe that to the side. And that bothers me, because we have to get to a point of maturity in our life to be able to understand what God is really saying.
Yes.
That truth. And we have to have a consistency of learning, and the illustration you use with Christ, as in him scattering the seed, or he's putting the seed, and how it falls. And no matter how great the seed is, there's still some people out there with hearts that will not do anything or support. Yeah. Because there's still this struggle of spiritual warfare that a lot of people are in, that they can't see themselves or see the positivity in somebody else.
And that's so much true, Bishop, because, and I one of the billionaires said to me, and I said this to someone today, called me for a consultation. They call him the guru of LinkedIn, and I mean, he is a good brother that I've never met in person. And he began to just pour and share. And now I've watched him, he traveled, and he said to me, I want to help you because I see all the greatness in you. It's something you said to me. And I said, wow, YB? And then he was just sharing. And I said, because I know what his worth is. I said, I watch you, I follow you. But thank you for the wisdom and knowledge, because we've got to come to a point. Because I told you, don't wait till I get on Forbes. Don't wait till I get on. Oh, you know, I know I'm destined for greatness. I know I'm destined to be wealthy. But my desire for what I want to do for the kingdom, ministry, my pastor first, and all of those connected. However, people, as you said, they're not looking now. They're not wanting for it now until you get to a certain level. It's gonna be too late. Don't wait till I get there. I know I'm one, the word says it. Not only that, I'm tired, I'm gonna give up my soul, but not only that, even from the late apostle who prophetically declared all of this I'm saying today. But here it is, catching up to the timing and season of God, the manifestation, the maturity in me. And so when I do this wasn't just happen overnight. He told me that 25 years ago. But the timing and season, the maturity, the growth, the process, all in between. But guess what? I know it's going to happen. And so a lot of times, and it's sad in our culture that we don't support. Like, I know I support everybody, help everybody, push everybody, hurt. And believe it or not, that gentleman said that to me today. And I stopped. I was on my way home. Said, wow. He said, but I want to do this for you. And it just blew me away. Like, I know he traveled all over the country. And not just in that, but how God will strategically place somebody. And I told people, this is a season of divine connections, the power of collaboration, and the power of networking. And he has really placed so many people from across the country. We just released a book across the country in my life to push me and to help me. But I always say this, never forget those, and my mom and I say, you heard that, never forget those who helped you on your journey up where you're going. That's right. And never forget the bridge that brought you over, because you may have to go back and cross it. And so I would never forget a bishop. I would never forget those who played a part in my journey of where I'm going. And I just left when I was in Atlanta for a radio interview. I mean, when that station like literally rolled out the red carpet, invited me back, but then I gotta go back in November because they got something. It's like, this is what we need you to do. First time meeting them in person. But see, God already knew. It's from the spirit. And he shifted the whole geographic area. He shifted all of those and placed them. And genuinely will love and support. Genuinely, but everybody played a part. I tell them, just turn the page, turn the chapter.
This is the last thing I'm gonna say. One of the things that I see, even in my season of God planning to see, I think one of the greatest, we had faith already in God, because we were trusting Him for all of the force. One of the things that I learned that a lot of people don't talk about, I was reading from the Bible about how the farmer is patient because there can be a season of drought, but that does not mean the seed still will not germinate. A lot of people give up because they're not patient, because they're expecting like that. I listen intently and everything.
Yeah.
It's like we're putting everything in the microwave and we're expecting for it to be hot on the inside, but it's not. There's a lot of people, and I've become impatient, and everybody else can rush your process. And you have to learn how to hear from God, so your process of patience won't wear you out for people. Because people will push you into something that God has not given you or do not want you to have. And that patience is the key. And a good farmer, as he waits patiently for people.
And that's a good illustration, and I know we run out of time. I'm gonna end with this in here, when you talk about process, this is the ending and the conclusion of it. Waiting, as my bishop would say, waiting may not be popular, but it still works. And I always add, it pays to wait on God. And it does, because the farmer has to be patient. But here's the thing, it's a continued cycle. We're always planting, nurturing, and harvesting simultaneously. A farmer cannot stop, because farming is a way and means of life for him. Planting, nurturing, harvesting is also a way and means of life for us spiritually as believers. When you look at ants, note during the warm months, they constantly work gathering food. They know that winter is coming, so they prepare so that when the season changes, they will have what they need to survive until warmer weather returns. So the process doesn't stop. Never give up, endure the process, and know that it's going to get better. But always remember, if you can help somebody out, somebody will help you in return. And so that's how powerful it is. And so it's just more than, like you said, but that waiting period is where so many people get so anxious. They don't want to wait. They want to jump ahead of God. They want to jump ahead of the timing and season. And so when you do that, it really messes up what he has in store, because you're trying to go ahead. You're not ready. You're not prepared. You know, you look at animals, you can't just put them out of the nest or however it's the timing and season. And so waiting still works, as my pastor. But listen, it may not be popular, but it still works. It does, it pays to wait on God. We gotta wait our timing and season, because I'll tell you, it'll be worth it all. It will be worth it all. It will be worth it all. It will be worth it all. So I have worksheets up here for everybody as well, but I'll